It's quite obvious that the generative AI will replace all traditional positions, but it doesn't necessarily mean that people will be unemployed. It's really hard to measure what will be the job we lose and job we created. It's really hard to compare these two at this point, but this will happen in the near future.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. That is Datable's weekly podcast. In every 2 weeks, we will talk with experts on data science, fintech topics. Thank you for Averest Training that they are providing us to record this podcast, this studio in very heart of Istanbul. So today we will talk about a brand new topic, generative AI, and everybody talks and use these models for in work life and daily life. So we have a very knowledgeable expert today, and Abdullah Karasan. He's studied in economics and business administration and got master's in Michigan Ann Arbor. Also, he got his PhD in financial mathematics from Middle East Technical University. Also, he's currently senior data science consultant, TFI Food Investment, and founder of Leverage AI. Welcome, Abdullah.
Thanks for having me.
Today we are talking about integration of generative AI and how artificial intelligence and generative artificial intelligence impacts on workforce side, business side, and for individuals. And today, generative AI actually has too many good effects, also side effects too. And let me understand first, what's the difference artificial intelligence and generative artificial intelligence?
And this is a good starting point, first of all. So artificial intelligence is a broad topic. So when we say artificial intelligence, it can be basically defined as like an effort to automate intellectual tasks normally performed by human. But when it comes to generative AI, we can think of it as a subtitle artificial intelligence. So generative AI creates novel contents using a training data. So training data is something that we use to run the training part. So when I say novel content in the generative AI, I am referring to the audio, text, video, any type of data. So at the end of the day, without using any, deep expertise in terms of the feature engineering, we can create novel content simply using generative AI, which is the beauty of the generative AI, because if you're an expert in machine learning, you know that you need an expertise to explore the data, to apply feature engineering and this kind of stuff. But when it comes to generative AI, if you are a practitioner, of course, you can simply use it without having a deep knowledge.
Yeah. So for generative AI, we need to bunch of data sets, unlabeled data sets, also computational force, maybe.
That's correct.
And also, should we invest much more money?
Yes, that's for sure. So it's really hard to develop generative AI models from scratch. That's why it's really hard for the startups or mid-sized companies. But when it comes to using it, it's really cheap.
Yeah.
That's really good. So it's really cheap. You can easily use it and deploy it. But when it comes to creating a generative AI applications like a ChatGPT, BART, or Llama, something like that, so it's really hard and costly.
Right. There are too many, actually, we both use for our daily purposes, also in work life, to getting things smarter and with a very short timeline. So there are a bunch of applications, generative AI applications. You mentioned ChatGPT, like BART, Llama, there are a bunch of them. And most of them are free, or we can maybe have some more complicated version with small fees, like ChatGPT's $20 per month per user, right? So the point is that with no fee applications, or if I don't pay for the application, it offers more minimal data governance or maybe security. How come?
It's more about like how many requests you can send to the open source generative AI, because they can provide the APIs, and sometimes there is a limit in terms of using it. So when you start sending too many requests to this API, so you can be blocked. So if you are paid user, so you can use it on a limitless basis. So that's the difference between the paid user and the free user. But when it comes to quality of the content, so we can talk about ChatGPT and the newer version. If you stick to the GPT 3.5, it's free. But GPT-4 is not. GPT-4 is, as you said, $20 per month. So if you compare these two, there is a big difference in terms of the quality of the content. So that's another thing that we need to know before using the generative AI models. But, GPT 3.5, the other disadvantage of the hallucination. The hallucination is problematic in GPT 3.5 than in GPT-4. That's another thing.
In generative AI, in terms of power, generative AI has, I think, same impact with electricity, engines, and like internet, because more or less it involves our lives. And everybody asking a kind of product. If you want to, for your enterprise or your daily life, you can use kind of applications, but the point is generative AI becoming a general purpose technology with an impact similar to that of the steam engines and internet. So how it can be possible with generative AI applications? Of course, from enterprise side, there are providers like AWS, Microsoft, OpenAI, and they are currently already did this, but also currently investing millions of dollars.
Huge amount.
And they have human capital. So if you want to more broaden and deeper analysis and management, so you definitely need to more developed ones, right? But for individuals, maybe for beginners at least, the free versions useful.
Would be enough using. Yeah, that's very true. Speaking of the impact brought by the generative AI, I would like to make a point here, because this is the point we would we want to talk about. Nick Bostrom is a very famous writer and the technologist in our field. So he thought that after the agricultural and industrial revolution, the revolution brought by artificial intelligence is massive. Like, it's not even comparable with agriculture or industrial revolution. So that makes it quite important field. I mean, the artificial intelligence as a whole can create another revolution in the history of human being. So when it comes to the impact that it has been making, so it's really tremendous. But when it comes to deploying generative AI products, it's not that feasible at this point, because we still have time to efficiently use the generative AI. And in terms of the deploying it, regulations restricts us, which is not a bad thing, first of all. So if we have solid, efficient regulations, which something we should have in the field of AI, this type of regulations hamper the development of some AI-based applications, and generative AI is not an exemption of it. So when we have the newer version of generative AI, like the rumors around about GPT-5, so I think with the advancement in the regulation part, we will have more deployed products based on generative AI.
Even these already going versions of the artificial intelligence, generative AI applications, it interact with real persons, real people actually, and it improves itself, right?
It improves itself whenever it is retrained, actually. So the training is done on a regular basis, but not on a daily basis. There is a misunderstanding about people think that whenever we provide a prompt, it's used in the training phase. So it's really costly to do that. I'm not saying that they, compile a batch data simply using our prompts and then use it for the training purpose at some point in time, but not a single prompts are used in the training purpose. By the way, there is an option now as not to use my data, my prompt in the training stage. This is another stuff. This is another good news, actually. So So the long story short, we can say that our prompt, we cannot 100% sure our prompt is used in the training data.
Yeah.
There is a, there's
So-
lack of transparency, but
Yeah.
yeah.
I understand that. It's not real-time updated version
No.
that we use currently, right?
Yeah.
The point is, when I give it my data or the company give its data to Gen AI model, it doesn't provide another user at the same time, right?
Yes.
But there is a risk maybe in the
Yes.
future
Yeah.
they will keep it
Yes.
and maybe share with
Yes.
another user.
That's very true.
But now it's not kind of risk, but maybe in the future.
Yes, but we have option to not to use it in the training data. If it is viable
In
option.
any application?
No, in
No.
some of them.
Some
in
of
some
them.
of them. So if you take this, click on this.
Yeah.
So we are told that our data that we provide in the prompt or we upload the data, as you know it, will not be used as the training data set.
So accepting or declining these articles or the options is matters at that point.
Sure.
Right?
Sure. Yeah. It matters. It matters.
So I think we can move with generative AI impact of the future of work. So we already know most of the magazines, ad agencies, also some pharmaceutical companies, heavy defense industry companies are using generative AI. So the generative AI in the workplace make us and content creators, sort of. So the generative AI tools and models already summarizing big articles or change the data sets or making analyzing, giving insights. So what it changed in nature of the work is maybe the employees should be more creative or they should develop their strategic thinking way because most of the routine tasks already handled by the machine learning applications and generative AI.
So generative AI has changed the AI landscape tremendously.
Yeah.
So as you said, if you're not an expert in the field, you just think that, okay, I'm using generative AI to create a new content like text in terms of text. But it's not the only thing. Ask me this question for like 5 years ago about the sentiment analysis, let's say. I will say that we should compile a large corpus to run a sentiment analysis on a, let's say, financial text. And then, it's really hard to compile this text that we are going to use in the training data and then applying data exploration, cleaning, and the feature engineering. And then this is really a long step in the natural language processing.
Yes.
But with the advancements, with the development of the large language model, which is the backbone of the generative AI, with the advancement of these large language models, it's really easy, way easier than it used to be. Because we just have this pre-trained model, import it and just use it, and give your text, like it may be a shorter one, doesn't matter, because it's just we're just gonna check if what will be the sentiment. So we just use the train data, use our text, and that's it. You don't need an expertise anymore if you are going to use that way.
Yeah.
So generative AI, has been bringing a lot of different innovations, and it makes our life way easier before.
Yes.
So it's quite obvious.
Yes. The point is maybe the enterprises should some kind of trainings to its employers because if you consider about the conflicts, if a machine takes my job from my hand, it will probably be a problem for me.
Yes.
And in general, society probably don't like that.
That's
Right.
correct. Yeah.
So maybe giving employees trainings how to use artificial intelligence in work and also maybe improving creative thinking and strategic thinking is also another issue. It's not easy. We talking about training machines, but training human as well, right?
Yeah,
It
that's
pushes
very
us to train ourselves too.
That's correct. That's correct. So it's quite obvious that the generative AI will replace all traditional positions, but it doesn't necessarily mean that people will be unemployed. We can transform the industry with these advancements, and we can use our labors more efficiently
Definitely.
in different tasks.
Yeah.
It's really hard to measure what will be the job we lose and job we created. It's really hard to compare these two at this point, but this will happen in the near future. So we will
Collaboration is
create
the
new
key
jobs.
at
Yes,
that point,
yes,
right?
yes.
So also, if we evaluate the risks, for instance, too many workers asking help from machines for their work tasks, but at the same time, you can upload your data or your customers' data. So we need governance in the
That's right.
workplace, maybe.
That's very true. That's very true. So we don't want to use it because even if we know that, even if we click on don't use in the training data, we are not 100% sure about that. Still, even though we click on this option, it can be used. There is no guarantee in that. So the thing is, generative AI can be used in different tasks, and providing sensitive information is a very problematic area. So speaking of the risks, I would like to list some of the big risks that we exposed to when it comes to generative AI. So this is like what you say is the copyright information. So
Definitely.
copyright problem. So if we provide the data, so they can be used in the training data without our permission. This
Definitely.
is really problematic issue. The other stuff is the distribution of the wrong information, or data privacy is another concern. Or we can talk about bias, like we simply distribute the bias. It's already in the system.
Yeah.
We have the bias in the training data, more or less. By using generative AI, we simply disseminate this bias, and it just result in unintended consequences because we disseminate a wrong and bias information in terms of gender, in terms of race, whatever it is.
Yes, that's why we need governance, because you said that you mentioned about biases. The point is the artificial intelligence models kind of mirror.
Yes.
It learns, it feds from the data sets.
Yeah.
If the data sets has biases, then these models also reflect or exaggerate the results, right?
Yes.
So at that point, also, it's most of the big tech companies from US and the Europe.
Yes.
And the developers are mostly European and American, mostly, right? Yeah. So also, if we evaluate all these technology, maybe bias is coming from the Europe or coming from the eye of an American and European, right?
Yes, even though they scrap the open source data that is available online, so most of the data that they are using is like coming from Western countries like European Union or the United States. So we cannot say that there is no bias in this data because this data stores Western ideas, right? So we are using this idea. So if there is any bias in this, so we distribute this type of biases, and we also, exaggerate the bias, simply recreating over and over again.
The point is maybe data set biased by intentionally. And get rid of these biases I think it's not possible, right? Get rid of all of the biases, right?
It's hard task.
It's already learned.
Yes.
And big tech companies, some tools are already using and spreading, as you said, right? Yes.
They are trying to do something for it. Like if there's a sensitive keywords in the text, they just say, for instance, ChatGPT basically says that I cannot say something about this in terms of the sensitive topic. So this is what they are doing for the time being.
Yeah.
And quality of the data has been improved a lot since the first introduction of the ChatGPT. So I guess we can minimize the bias in the training data, but it's really hard to say that it will be bias-free.
Yes.
It's really hard.
Yes. For instance, like a facial recognition model, if fed by biased data, maybe identify individuals wrong way, and it leads some legal cases or diplomatic crisis, right?
Yes.
So feeding the models with diversity data sets and auditing the models periodically is matters at that point.
That's correct. That's correct. Even though the United States is not very good at regulations,
Yeah.
states are taking their own measures.
Yeah.
Like, for instance, California has imposed a legal restriction on using facial data.
Yeah.
Because using this data, you can commit a crime. I don't know.
Yeah.
You can do many different stuff using this type of data. So that's why states are trying to taking measures, because we need to control the AI. Even if we want to improve it,
Yeah.
On the other hand, we need to control for it.
Yes.
This is something.
But
we should
most of the popular tools didn't declare it. The companies didn't declare it. I'm aligned with the GDPR or kind of other laws. So it probably takes time, right? It's
It
not
will.
easy
It's not easy.
because it's not limited with United States or European Union.
That's correct. This is also the company has something to do, but European Union has been taking a concrete steps towards the regulations on AI. For instance, the AI Act. AI Act, EU introduced the AI Act. In the AI Act, it simply mandates the transparency and also restricts some AI use cases, like more like the
Migration, maybe?
biometric data.
Yeah,
For
biometric
instance,
data.
biometric
Yeah.
data. They cannot use the biometric data in AI use cases. This is what the AI Act says. Simply.
Yes, because it still has risks that maybe identify wrong way,
That's correct.
biased way, and
Yes.
even the generative AI is evolving in good way and developing. At the same time, there is still needs fine tuning with human hand, right?
That's correct. That's another important point, because we know that on the technical side, we know that when developers develop the ChatGPT, they use human feedback models. Technically speaking, human feedback reinforcement learning. So if we want to have a trustable or reliable generative AI models, humans should be in the loop.
Yeah.
We should keep humans in the loop. So that's something we should have if we want to, follow the regulations, or if we don't want to use it for some unintended, use cases.
Yeah, and controlling also providers is maybe matters at that point because, for instance, Salesforce, IBM, and other giants, tech giants, still investing and building the larger LLM models, their own models. So they're big and investing, they can able to invest large amounts. Also, they have big human capital, also laboratories, but in the generative AI topic is not new actually. So we are talking generative AI since 2022. And for 2 years, there are limited startups producing or developing generative AI tools because for startup sites, it's still hard to hire very knowledgeable experts because it needs a big amount of investing, right?
Yes,
also, there are limitations from the law side.
That's for sure. That's for sure. So even though generative AI is in our hands now, we can use it.
Yeah.
But when it comes to deployment, or when it comes to creating our own, large language models, so it's really costly.
Yeah.
Because like 1 year ago, I guess, OpenAI CEO Sam Altman told us that the daily cost of the ChatGPT is around $900,000. So it's beyond. It's a cost that's cannot be covered by the standard startup. But if you find big investors, so you're free to go. But for a ordinary startup, this cost cannot be bearable. It's too much. But when it comes to using it, it's really low cost. And with the tools like LangChain, it's really easy to deploy when you are not subject to strict regulations.
Yeah. And another keyword when we're talking about generative AI is hallucination.
Yeah.
Maybe we need to give some details for audience, right?
Yeah, that's another problem in the large language models, generative AI models, let me say. Sometimes I use large language model and generative AI interchangeably because this is kind of a main building block. The large language model is the main building block for the generative AI models. So the hallucination, in the case of hallucination, content doesn't align with reality. So content that we created has no tie with the reality. So it happens when we have poor training data or there is a gaps in the training data. And this result in this distribution of the wrong data.
Misleading results, right?
Yes, that's for sure.
And it's the model doing it unintentionally, right? It's like made up.
The output is the made up output.
Yeah.
That's correct. But due to the poor training data, the output is the made up output, has nothing to do with the reality.
Yeah. So correcting this is easy, or detecting hallucinations is easy.
If you know the domain, so you can detect it. Or if you are just a practitioner and have no idea about the output, so you just use it as it is.
Yeah.
So this is another problem because an article from Economist like a couple of weeks ago said that we cannot control these contents, but we trust on the author. So now we cannot, rely on the content. We need to check who is disseminating this information.
Yeah.
After that, we can make sure that the content is correct. So, or we can go back and keep the human in the loop in the generative AI modeling process. These two stuff, like keeping human in the loop and checking who is disseminating this information, will be the solution to this type of problem.
The human, the part of reviewer side, right? Human is there because as a reviewer, checking it. So maybe asking for help, large language models for strategic projects or in low codes, I don't know, this kind of hard issues is still big risk, right?
You mean in developing the...
And maybe not developing, but when we are using large language models for the
that's why we need
asking
regulations.
Solution, right?
That's why we need regulations and responsible people, responsible expert, subject matter experts. So thanks to this, like the regulations and this responsible subject matter experts, the usage of generative AI will be more reliable and trustable.
So we are highly tied with big tech companies when we need help, because the startups, the small ones, are not capable of bringing the solution to the table for the big companies or big issues. So is it also another risk because they have big share in financial and social responsibility?
Yes, we expect actually governments to come in and regulate this area because we cannot live in the hands of big tech companies. I mean, when it comes to regulations, European Union is doing this. We expect United States should also do that because most of the developments are coming from the United States. So we need a regulation in the United States for this. That's very true.
So also, like at that point, domain-specific expertise matters, right? Why the experts are so valuable when we developing generative AI? Yesterday we talked about domain-specific expertise. It's hard to get higher kind of experts. The point is, we know there is in big tech companies as providers, and they have big share in social responsibility and financials. So you mentioned about the regulation over the United States and Europe, but at the same time, in workplace, I also, have ChatGPT and BART, and I give some information, and maybe even if with BART and ChatGPT, are there any risks to a kind of hallucination or misleading information kind of risks?
Yes, there is. But your question is about the experts, I guess.
Expert. But what I'm trying to link is, do the companies, enterprises who uses these LLM models, still need to hire an expert for the big project's results, reviewing the big project results, or I mean,
to make sure that we are not using confidential information.
yeah,
Okay.
kind of.
So actually, this is not the task that companies can do or the experts can do, because we should have a solid regulatory framework.
Yeah.
And after that, we have steps to take. So once we have the regulation, we cannot simply put it aside. We should follow this, and we should have concrete steps how to use the data, when to use the data, which type of data we can use, and how to deploy it, how to deploy the model and generate the output to the end users. So this is not something that we can leave in the hands of developers or the companies or something like that. Right at that point, we need a solid regulatory framework. And after that, companies are responsible. The subject matter experts are responsible for not, adhering to these standards, regulations.
Okay. So question will be, so generative AI provides new and disruptive opportunities for
Yes.
all, but businesses and individuals, right? And it's kind of and using artificial intelligence model brings competitive advantage, and it's factor of differentiate. So if we evaluate industries in pharmaceutical sites, using generative AI models shorten the develop a drug and research and development process. Also, companies who use large language models when they developing or producing kind of item, cost reduction is another opportunity.
Yes. So we have many different use cases in generative AI. One of them is what you said, is drug discovery. So simply using generative AI, we can detect novel molecules, and using these molecules, we can initiate the drug discovery process. This is a very, very good news for the pharmaceutical companies. But pharmaceutical domain is not the only domain that we can use generative AI. So we can use it in finance and the customer relation management. So for instance, in finance, we can use generative AI, simply summarize a text, running a sentiment analysis on a text, or topic detection, something like that. And when it comes to customer relation management, we can use generative AI, like we can use the audio, video, or text data for deeper personalization, for better marketing campaign.
Yeah.
So there are many different use cases.
Definitely. For instance, in heavy industry sites, right? In aerospace or defense sites. So in defense industry, in terms of production, you need to meet specific criteria in terms of performance or materials. It's also when it's because of these industries need big amounts invest. So it's also has benefits from the cost reduction. Also, the timeline is decreasing, right? The time to research and development and production is decreasing at that point.
Yes, these are the biggest opportunities brought by generative AI. So as I said before, if we run the same task for like 5 years ago, maybe 10 years ago, we spent too much time and money to do that. But simply using a pre-trained large language models, I mean generative AI, we can simply do this task in a very short period, and it's almost no cost applications. So it's changed the whole landscape. This is quite clear.
You're at the same time academic in Maryland University.
Yes.
And also advisor some food investment companies, right? At that point, do you have any success stories in real life in the industries?
Yeah.
Maybe you mention about that.
Actually, right now, I'm senior data science consultant in CRM company, TFI Tab Food Investments. So we simply using generative AI, we can get more insights from the data, and we can use it for better customer experience. And also we are using on a chatbot, generative AI based chatbot, to even increase more this engagement with the customers, because what we want is this: we want to fully integrate a chatbot. When you have no idea about the menu, what you need is to say, like, I have $500 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I need, and we are 2 people here.
Yeah.
So what's your advice in terms of menu we can get? So this makes life easier. I mean, in terms of end users. This type of applications is coming up. And once we deploy it, this will create a big change in the system. So we are excited about that too.
Yeah. As user experience, how it differentiate the game when we provide kind of generative AI systems to mid-size, small size, or maybe big companies. So how they differentiate when they use kind of models?
It's quite obvious that it will increase the interaction with the users. And in terms of cost, it's really almost no cost. So this will also have consequences for the end users, I mean the customers, because they can easily, they can, thanks to this generative AI based applications, they can easily get in touch with some of the products. It was hard to do that before the generative AI, and the marketing team can easily track what's going on the customer side, and customers can also feel that. So for instance, you didn't purchase something from a company for a while, so your retention period is going up and up. And then a marketing team realized that thanks to the generative AI based models, and then step in and say, hey, you're not purchasing for a long time. Why don't you take this discount or take this product for free? So something like that. We will see this type of applications to be used much more efficiently than it used to be.
So no matter size of the company, it's having that kind of models are affordable.
That's correct.
Right.
That's correct. That's correct.
For everyone's
These are
budget,
affordable.
there is an AI model or application.
Yes. But when it comes to finance and healthcare domains, it's not that easy, because finance and healthcare are, strictly regulated domains. So it's not easy to deploy this type of model in these domains. So in the CRM, we are have more room play, but it's not the case for finance and healthcare.
So in healthcare industry and finance industry, not willing to, as others, to having kind of generative AI models when it comes to doing business or integrated these models to its business.
In fact, they are eager to use it, but due to this strict regulations, it's really hard to deploy. So that's kind of demotivating issue here. Before deploying this type of model, it should be checked very strictly. That's a big problem in deploying this type of products. But when it comes to developer side, they would like to use it. They would like to, they're very willingly use these products, that's for sure. But when it comes to deploying, this is another story.
Yeah. And how, as a Turkish national myself, how you evaluate how you evaluate Turkey's current situation towards the AI, generative AI also?
We can split this. I can split the users into two, or the developers into two, or the people, the subject matter experts into two, like the practitioners and the researchers. For the practitioner side, our data scientists, our Turkish data scientists, are willing to use it, and they are using it. They are using it. I know it. But when it comes to researching, I mean, developing our own generative AI or large language models or generative AI models, we are far from it, sadly. So I can say that from the practical standpoint, we are at a good shape. But when it comes to running research or creating a new large language model, we have time to do that. We have time to do that.
So, how you consider development of the generative AI? What's in the future we should expect?
We have been, hearing a lot of news. Like one of them is about the GPT-5. It's really hard to say what is waiting for us. But what I can tell you is that, more to come. So GPT-5, Gemini, introduced by Google, these will be very strong product. I read the white paper of the Gemini and I heard news about the GPT-5. These are promising. So it's really hard to say something concrete, but things are changing in positive way.
Yeah.
And we can expect more efficient, less costly, and more usable generative AI models in the near future, I guess.
Yeah. So for user side, in the future, and there is a bright future we expect, but for provider side, there is a strict competition with each other, maybe.
Yes. After the OpenAI introduced the ChatGPT, a new war has been started, as you know it. So the Google introduced BARD and the Meta introduced Llama. Different companies introduced different large language models, like IBM introduced.
Microsoft announced its own model, right?
Yeah, Microsoft, acquired OpenAI, the shares. So this will continue. And as I said, once you have it, it's a bit easier to improve it. Now we have it because ChatGPT is like something groundbreaking. And now we have it. What we are doing now is improving. But I'm not saying that this will continue like this. Maybe there will be another product that will change this story completely. I don't know. So the AI world is very, vivid. So it's really hard to say.
Also
something
unpredictable, maybe.
Yes, unpredictable. Yes, that's the right word. Yes.
Overall, after today's conversation, as a user, not a developer, but as a user, I'm happy because it offers too many help and easiness in life. So let's see how it will gonna shape our world and our daily lives.
Yeah, I'm excited about that too.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Today's episode, we talk about generative AI and impact our daily lives and both enterprise and business sides too, in very heart of Istanbul. See you next week.